Dear viewers, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening to you all. Welcome to our show Scholar Alaq with Professor Rafiqul Islam, who will be joining us from Malaysia. He is currently serving as a full professor at the Department of Business Administration, International Islamic University of Malaysia. He is a leading researcher in the area of operation management, and he served IIUM in various capacities. He was heading the Department of Business Administration. He was also a deputy Dean of Student Affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, he has published 5 books and over 75 research articles in local and international referred journal. 10 PhD students has completed under his supervision. He has examined many PhD theses from all around the world, and he received Excellence Research Award and Quality Research Award from IIUM. He's also a chief editor of IIUM Journal of Case Studies in Management. Ladies and gentlemen, what Professor Rafiqul Islam has to say tonight will be worthwhile. So I would recommend you to get ready with pen paper to put it on. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we are very, very delighted to have Professor Rafiqul Islam on our show this evening. Professor Rafiqul Islam, welcome to our show.
Welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuhu. Thank you very much, Dr. Mahfuzur Rahman, for inviting me to share my experiences on varieties of issues, which I feel very humbled and privileged. And I also welcome my dear audience, and I will be pleased to share with some. I hope the sharing will be quite beneficial to you.
Thank you, Prof. Prof, the first question would be to you will be what supervisors, especially PhD supervisors, expect from a PhD student?
It is a very good question. Indeed, I am honored once again to speak on this particular issue. Actually, we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the God, has created human beings in different way. Not two human beings are not same. So is the supervisors. So I will say upfront that you should ask, as a PhD student or as a research student, you should ask your supervisor that what is your expectation, because expectation might vary from person to person, from supervisor to supervisor. So when you start your doctoral research journey or any research journey, you have your supervisor. So you ask better that professor or sir or madam, what is your expectation, so that I can try to fulfill. Now, since I have to speak on this particular issue, so I will be spelling out, I'll be articulating my own expectation as a supervisor. So this will be my personal expectation from my PhD students particularly. I will expect that the student will be having a clear research problem when they come for PhD research. So they should be having their own research problem, because if the problem is given by the supervisor, the student may not have that much interest. So the student, if the student, they come up with their own research question, research problem, so naturally the student will be having passion and commitment, interest to pursue that particular problem. Now, the problem which you expect must be contemporary, especially for PhD research problem. And I'll be talking from social science point of view, not from science or medical or purely social science point of view. Mind that there could be some difference between science, engineering, and social science type of research, especially research model. So from social science point of view, we expect that the research problem statement should be on the contemporary issue and very important problem to solve. Should not be too old, like, say, for example, motivation theory. Motivation theory, 50, 60 years people have conducted. So what is the new thing that you are going to do, which is very difficult to do? Rather than doing on motivation theory, if you are thinking about the the pertinent issue is the society or the contemporary society is facing. For example, SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals. So this is just for example, Industrial Revolution 4.0. So these kinds of buzzwords, so people will like it. So this is number one. Number two, we expect that the student will be having very high research motivation and commitment. If the student has very low motivation commitment, then it is very difficult. The life will be very difficult to pursue. So, and I find that there are some indicators. I will know that the student has very high motivation. How do I know? Student will ask, sir, I want to finish my research within 3 years. So how to do it? So then immediately I know that this student is well prepared. He or she has a very high motivation. And students also communicate frequently to seek guidelines frequently. So I will say that the more communication with the supervisor is equivalent to more commitment to the research. So we expect very high motivation commitment from the student. Number three, we expect high level of politeness and respect to the supervisors. I feel sometimes bit otherwise. The students, the PhD student must have very high respect and politeness shown to the supervisor. Never ever be conflict with your supervisor. It's dangerous. So try to avoid heart and soul not to be in conflict with your supervisor. Whatever instruction the supervisor will provide, follow this religiously follow. And whenever a supervisor sends any WhatsApp message or any message, each and every message you have to respond. You cannot keep quiet. You have to respond. And what I notice that sometimes students say, okay. No, okay is not for you. Okay is for the supervisor. What you need to say? You need to say, okay, prof, or okay, sir, or okay, madam. Don't just say okay. It is actually not a good word. It does not convey the respect to the supervisor. You may not feel this, but with the supervisor feel. So please remember this: the politeness and respect is very, very important to have good relationship with your supervisor. Number four, good comment in English. Good comment in English, especially writing skills. Speaking is okay, but writing skill is very important from a PhD student. And this is one of the major problems I face personally. The English is sometimes not up to the mark at all. So we expect as a supervisor that the students will be having a very good skill in English and also good presentation skills. All right. Number five, appointment time. Of course, time to time, students have to take appointment. And I expect that the student, whenever I give appointment 10 o'clock, it is 10 o'clock, not even 1 minute past 10 o'clock. I have also problem in this case, sometime, not many times. If the student, if you feel that you cannot come at 10 o'clock, I will wait until maybe 5 minutes more, but not more than 5 minutes. If it is more than 5 minutes, I will consider that you are not coming. So if you sense that you will be late, you must inform your supervisor by sending message that, sorry, prof or doctor, I will be 10 minutes late. So it is okay. Then we understand. But if you don't say anything, and if you just come 10 minutes after 10 minutes and think that it is granted, it is not granted. And often I face this problem. So we expect the students will be coming, will be available, will be turning up before 10 o'clock. And as soon as the clock strikes at 10, you should be knocking the door. That is my expectation. And try not to cancel your appointment with your supervisor unless emergency. All right. And yeah, so here the main point is that the appointment, you have to maintain sharp on time. This is a very, very important, because the supervisor has some other work to do. Maybe after your consultation, there is another student. So if you are late, then that particular students will be also waiting. So it is not a good practice. We also expect that the students will be attending a conference once a year. And there are many benefits of attending conferences. The major benefit is the getting good renewed motivation and more ideas, more networking. And also when you present your work, you can also get good feedback, and which can be helpful to improve your work. So if possible, try to attend one conference per year. For social science, we also expect the students will be having good knowledge about SPSS or any software related to SPSS, any statistical package. Though you may be working is a qualitative research, but it is okay. Not that everything which you learn we will be applying, but it is mandatory for any social science students to have a good knowledge, even for the religious background. I mean the human science, even there many times they collect data, and whenever we collect data, we have to analyze the data, and SPSS knowledge is very, very important. And the next thing is that to gain this kind of knowledge, even it may not be having, you may not have a coursework on SPSS or like that. So in the outside, there are some training providers. They provide varieties of training workshops. So try to attend the relevant training which is useful for your PhD research. For example, in SPSS, you can attend two workshops. One is basic SPSS, the other one is advanced SPSS. You can also attend a workshop on AMOS, like SEM. SEM is a hotcake, is one of the most widely used research methodology by social science students. So we need to have a very good knowledge about AMOS or SEM, and also how to publish in a top tier journals. There are also some trainings, workshops. Our PhD students should be attending this. How to design a good questionnaire, that also very, very important. And for attending all these, you need to have some amount of budget. So please try to arrange this somehow, that some amount of budget is necessary to develop the research skills, attending conference, attending workshops, actually which is worth spending. The next point is time management, because it is a time-bound program. Of course, there is some maximum time limit for PhD research, but of course, the students are expected to finish much earlier. So if the supervisor advises that you should review these 10 articles within a week, and try your best to do that, to comply with the instruction. So that is the meaning of time management. And of course, there is a tool for managing time, which is called Gantt chart. So you need to have a Gantt chart and try to follow. In case you are lagging behind, you can speed up. So you need to have a Gantt chart to manage your time. And next is that if you are lacking your progress, you are not progressing well for whatever reason, and communicate with your supervisor that prof or doctor, sorry, my progress is a bit slow for whatever reason, so that supervisor will know. So seamless communication with the supervisor is very, very important. We also expect that students will be going to thorough literature review, so that I read always my students, read and read. The more you go for literature review, the better knowledge you develop, and you will be master in your research area, and you are supposed to be the master in your field. So if you have a scant reading, not much reading of the literature, then you cannot develop that particular knowledge which is required. So that's why thorough literature review is essential. And next point is that we also expect the students should be having the passion on publication. The PhD students should be also having a passion for publication. I have some students I have seen, mashallah, last about 15 years I am supervising. I have seen many students, my own, some other supervisory students, and I see the difference that some students, they come very well prepared. They are very good thesis, and also one of our PhD scholars, he's from Bangladesh. He got 11 papers, most of them published in Emerald journals, Scopus listed journals. 11 papers in a PhD journey. Can you believe this? Not all from PhD work. We also expect that the students can be doing some other work, of course not sacrificing the PhD work so that they can get published, because publication is very important. After completing your PhD journey, you will be applying for some job, and the first thing, if it is academic job, the first thing they will ask your publication. So we should not belittle that particular aspect. But I also advise at the same time, do not publish in a paid journal. There are two kinds of paid journals. One is really genuine, like many finance related journals. They are very good journals. Actually, it is not uncommon now, it is quite common, but there are also some people who are doing some bad business by just publishing any kind of work in exchange of money. Try to avoid that. Even if I am a recruiter and if I find that the students, the applicant has submitted the publication which are not authentic publication, then I will give negative marking. So please remember this, that try not to publish in a so-called predatory journals. In the international journals like Emerald, like Elsevier, Wiley, Taylor and Francis, the majority of their journals have no publication fees. So try to publish in a journal which is internationally reputed. And finally, we also expect a high level of honesty and integrity, which is very important in terms of your data collection, in terms of your write-up, no plagiarism, etc. So Dr. Mahfouz, I think these are my sharing about my expectation from one PhD student. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. It was very enlightening indeed. Prof, we're wondering, you have examined many PhD theses from all around the world. So as an examiner, what basically examiners look for in a PhD thesis?
Okay, thank you very much for your next question. The question is, what do examiners expect from a PhD thesis? That examiner could be external examiner, that examiner could be internal. It is the same expectation, whether internal external does not matter. I have examined about close to 40 PhD theses, locally as well as other countries like Australia. So I have some expectation, some experiences, obviously, in this case. So I will be giving my expectations. Number one, for a social science PhD dissertation, it should be structured. Like first of all, it should be introduction. And you know that introduction starts with background, then research, the problem statement. These are very well known. Then research questions, research objective, scope of the work. So the first chapter should be introduction. Second chapter should be literature review. Then third chapter is traditionally research methodology. However, if there is some kind of research problem which led to some particular country, I had one student from Somalia, and his research dissertation topic was Somalian higher education. So he intended to write so much about Somali higher education system or education system. I found that he's writing about 30 pages regarding education system in Somalia. So then, as a supervisor, I advised him not to put in literature review. This is not actually literature review. This is something else. Maybe there are some articles which are mentioned. So we advise the student to have a separate chapter. So that can be chapter 3 or chapter 2, whatever. And then next chapter will be the research methodology, then data collection, data analysis, and then discussion, and then finally conclusion. So first of all, this is the expectation. The structure should be maintained. Having said this, the next point is excellent English language. I particularly emphasize this because I don't like a thesis which is a very sloppy English language. I feel reading so bad. So I expect a very good English language. Well, when this is the PhD thesis after 3-4 years. So this 3-4 is the hard work. If you have read as I mentioned, then you should be already thorough in English. In case it's still not that good, then the thesis must be proofread by a very good reputed professional. It is a mandatory. Even though the English is good, but it is just a second opinion, second eye. That the thesis, recently I just evaluated one thesis, so poor English language, so obvious grammatical errors. We don't expect that. Maybe 1 or 2 for an entire thesis may be unavoidable, unintentional, but if it is so many places and obviously wrong, we don't expect that. So that means the thesis has not gone through the proper proofreading process. In fact, my university's policy is that before the submission of the thesis, the student must show the certificate that the thesis has been proofread. Next expectation, next we look that the literature review is comprehensive enough. In fact, we have the opinion that if the literature review is shallow, is not very comprehensive, then we give major correction. You know, there are some levels of correction, mainly major correction, minor correction. So sometimes we have this issue whether it's major correction or minor correction. So if the literature review is not thorough, then we may give a major correction. So please remember that the literature review should be thorough. We expect about 200 good articles published in reputed databases, and many of these articles must be up to date, meaning that last 5 to 7 years. Of course, there can be articles before that, but many articles, and some people say majority of the articles should be published recently. Also, the students should be incorporating the seminal works on that particular area. Who initiated, for example, if you are going to apply technology acceptance model or TAM, who developed TAM is Davis in 1989. So his work must be mentioned. So the seminal work should not be, even though there may be 20 years, 30 years old, it is okay, because these are the pioneering works. And also, I will say that if your research problem related to, let's say, Malaysia or Bangladesh or India or Netherlands, there should be one section in the literature review, local context. It's not scattered all over, which is not a good practice. There should be a quite comprehensive section delineating the research work which is done in that particular country on that particular aspect. For example, one of my students is now doing an e-wallet enhancement. We know that now e-wallet is in practice by many SMEs, many shops. It was not there before, but still it is not up to the level it should be. So he is trying to find out why the e-wallet is not being catching up, which is supposed to be. And that is in Malaysian context. So e-wallet has been researched all over the world, but that is, of course, should be there. But what is also important, that how much work has been done on the local context. So we expect this, we look for this one. If it is not there, means there will be some comments on this. We also expect that after at the end of the PhD thesis, you will be, of course, you will be doing some survey, qualitative or quantitative. It's okay, but we expect some model. That is your baby. That is your baby. So at the end of your research, what is your baby? The model is your baby. So that is your, you will be carrying this baby to someone. So this is my model. So please remember that there should be some model developed after your research work. If there is no model, then perhaps there will be no theoretical contribution, or it will be difficult to justify what is your theoretical contribution. All right. It is extremely important to have a matching between your research objective and research, the research method. For example, if you want to prioritize a set of factors, right now I am evaluating one student thesis. He is trying to find out the criteria used by parents and the students to choose universities for higher studies. So we know that we parents, we choose universities, or students themselves, they choose universities for higher studies. So what are the criteria? And you will find that the criteria are not equally important. Some criteria are more important than others. So this is the issue of prioritization. And he has applied a HP analytic hierarchy process. That is the correct methodology. So if I don't find HP or something else has been applied, which may not be best suitable method to relate with the research objective. If you have a independent variable, dependent variable, then we expect you will be applying multiple regression analysis or structure equation modeling. If you are interested to find out efficiency of a set of units, then we expect that the methodology should be data envelopment analysis. If you are interested to find out demographic effect of the demographical variables, then you can apply analysis of variance or multivariate analysis of variance. Incidentally, if your dependent variable is categorical, then of course you have to apply either discriminant analysis or logistic regression. So you see that there is a matching. So if you have a research question, research objective, there is a right research method, and you need to apply that. The moment you are not applying, that means there is something, some comment will be there. Next will be the selecting the right respondents. I share my experience that I heard this. One student, she research area was in the area of education, and her respondents are supposedly to be teachers. For convenience purpose, she went to a teacher training college where there are many, people are there. They are attending, getting training, and it was very easy to collect data. And then she analyzed the data and then presented in the final viva. Just note that, final viva. And then the student was asked, "Who are your respondents?" Then the student said, "My respondents were the trainee in the teacher training." Then the examiner said, "They are not the teachers yet." So the issue was the teaching efficacy. Teaching efficacy can be judged when the person respondent is a teacher. So the student contracted, the respondents were not yet teachers. And what was the result? The students were failed, because he said that the data cannot be relied. So if the data are not usable, not reliable, entire analysis is wrong. It's not reliable analysis. So the students, not even major correction, it was failed. So the lesson here is we have to choose the right respondents. Very, very important. And in your thesis, you need to provide the sampling procedure. How did you conduct your survey? The sample size is very frequently asked question, the justification of your sample size. And if you are applying structure equation modeling, we expect that we look for the convergent validity and also discriminant validity. If you are applying SEM, if there is no convergent validity, discriminant validity is something wrong in a big way. If you are applying multiple regression analysis, don't forget to provide the correlation matrix, and also the issue of multicollinearity. These are basics. You have to provide that. And if any hypothesis is not supported, then you need to come up with the possible reasons. What could be the possible? For other researchers, the hypothesis was supported, but for you it was not supported. So what actually what are the causes, possible causes for which the hypothesis is not supported? If you are using Likert scale, then you have to provide the reliability measure. We look for the reliability measures. Usually it is a Cronbach alpha. So you have to provide that. One of the frequently missing link is the pretest. Pretest and pilot test are not same. Pretest is actually when we design a question or a questionnaire. This questionnaire has to be verified by at least 2 academic professors and 2 practitioners. Then you will not just a supervisor. Of course, supervisor will look into, definitely supervisor will look into everything. But in addition to the supervisor's views, the student is required to consult 2 academic professors and professors or associate professors, at least academicians, and 2 practitioners, because the practitioner's views is very important, because maybe it is related to some industry. So the practitioner's views is, and in this case, many times I see it is not there. And these 4 people, they are not going to fill up your questionnaire. They will be giving comment about whether your items are really correct or not. As English is correct, sometimes they can correct English as well. So this is called pretest. Once it is done, the pretesting is done, then you need to go for pilot test. Many times you also don't see the pilot test. Now, if in the final examination, if all these things are not there, then we feel sorry. Then how we are going to go back? It is not possible to go back. Sometimes out of mercy, we pass the student. But the student did not go for pretesting. The student did not go for pilot testing. It is a very serious lapse, I will say. Next thing is that we look for how you design your questionnaire. Is it only from your side? Not necessarily all the time. Most of the time it is from the other people's source. So you have to provide the sources, and if you have changed, if you have modified, then you have to mention what kind of modification you have mentioned. We also look for unit of analysis. It could be individual, it could be organization. So you have to provide. This is all in small sections you have to provide. Then common error bias, all these kinds of things are important. And finally, you make sure that you have answered your research questions. So that's why in the conclusion chapter, we expect that the students will be dealing with this, that you explain all this, and then you mention these addresses or these answers my first research question. Then again, you explain something, then you mention that these answers my second research question, etc. So you have to address this. And then regarding the bibliography also I find very frequently the problem that you have cited inside the thesis, but it is not listed in the reference section. Very, very common. And also, it is also not good if it is listed in the reference, it must be cited in the text. So this one, I sometimes advise my student that if you cannot find out this mistake, you give to your friend. It's very easy to check. Okay? Anybody can check that, whether the cited reference is there or not. If it is not there, then it has to be there. Then another problem is that each university has its own style. For example, our university follows APA style. So when APA style is there, you cannot mix up with any other style. You have to follow APA style throughout of your all the references, books, articles, all these. And another problem which we find is that many times the reference is not complete. Quite frequent that either volume number is missing, issue number missing, can be tolerated, but it is not good also that many journals, when you publish into want to publish in a journal, they will require the issue number as well. So look for the completeness, the author's name correctly, year of publication, title of the paper, journal title, volume number, issue number, and page numbers. So then it is complete. All right. And another point is that if you are using SPSS or MOS or any kind of software, there is output. So the major output you should place in the appendix, because you have written, let's say that you have written Kornberg alpha is 0.78. It's a very good figure. Of course, we can write anything, but some examiner may be interested to check whether really it is the case or not. So that's why they look for the appendix, the output, the SPSS output as the appendix. And my last point is that when students come for guidance, if I have a good thesis, then I can give to the student. And I think having a good thesis makes life much easier. So the student can follow, but that the student must be careful that cannot copy. It is just for guidelines to get the ideas, to get the structure, so that is important, because the students still is a starter in the PhD journey or even masters. So having a good PhD thesis at student disposal helps a lot. So we expect, we look for many things in the PhD thesis, or some of the things I have mentioned. So thank you very much, Dr. Mahfouz.
Thank you, Prof. It was very detailed in nature, Prof. Now, before we move on to the next question, I would like to inform our ladies and gentlemen out there. If you have any question, please leave them below in the comment section. So we'll be reading your question shortly, right after the answer of the last questions. So, Prof, our last question would be for you today is about the tips of finishing a PhD journey with publication.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Mahfouz. Publication,
so what would be your
the publication is very, very important. In fact, many universities nowadays, they require that the students will be publishing, and then they will be allowed to submit this requirement was not there until 3 years ago, but right now somehow it has come. Some university went 2, some university 3 publications are required. So how to get published from the PhD thesis is really a very important topic. And indeed, there are some workshops. I will advise students that you should attend as many workshops as you can. The more, the better. And there are some workshops like this, that how to convert a thesis to a paper, because there are many things which we need to know while writing the paper from the thesis. So I will share some of the experiences which I have and some tips as well. Now, before you start to write a paper, it is good to have a model paper. Like, as I said, a model thesis when you are developing a thesis. So if you have a model paper, then that will also guide you how you are going to develop your paper. So try to have a model paper with you while you are starting to write a paper. And once again, I will say the English language. As I said in the thesis, that English language is very, very important, but entire thesis, there may be some few grammatical mistakes here and there. It's not good, but as I said, it's okay, because it's a very long thesis, so 1 or 2 mistakes may be expected. But this one is not expected at all. Not a single mistake, English mistake, grammatical mistake, silly grammatical mistake in a paper. So before you send to any journal for publication, this manuscript must be proofread by a professional. Next point is that since many things are there in the thesis, so one tendency is cut and paste from the thesis to a paper. No, cut and paste may not work in this particular case. So much of the things you may need to rewrite or rephrase while you are writing a paper. Remember that the paper should be very, very concise, and thesis should be very long. So much of the things you need to rephrase or rewrite. So how many papers can be expected from a PhD thesis? If you are applying mixed mode, then you can have easily 2 papers. 1 paper, definitely one paper. If you are applying mixed mode method, you can have easily 2 papers, sometimes 3 papers. More than 3, it depends, and that is not very common. Now, if you are writing more than 1 paper from your thesis, then of course in the paper you need to write literature review. Now, 1 paper literature review should be different from the other papers literature review. So that is a very, very important point. Even though the papers are same, but you need to rephrase or rewrite that particular section. Otherwise, it will be considered as self-plagiarism, which is not allowed. And also the language of the literature review section should be different from 1 paper to your another paper. And as I said that thesis is very long, so many words are there, so you need to cut the extra details while you keep the substance. Please note that in the thesis it is mandatory to give the section, the problem statement is mandatory, RQs is mandatory, ROs, research object is mandatory, definition of terms is mandatory, sampling definition, all these kinds of things are mandatory. But interestingly, not a single one you should give, you should provide this in your paper. See the difference between a thesis and paper. But the main objective of your thesis, that should be stated in your paper. So no research question, no research problem statement as such. I mean, under the heading. The heading cannot be research, the problem statement or RQs or ROs or definition of terms, not at all. But the major research objective should be stated in your paper. And also, you have developed your thesis over the years, and today you are going to write your paper. So mind that 2-3 years already lapsed. So within these 2-3 years, there are a lot of literature in your area have been published. So make sure that you update your literature review before you send your paper for publication. Then a good abstract. The thesis abstract may not be directly exported as an abstract for paper. Paper abstract is even more concise, and a good abstract is extremely important to get a paper published. And this abstract, you need to highlight all the major components like research objective, your research methodology, especially sampling, sample size, and also briefly you have to state what are the major findings. That also that you have to provide in your abstract. So once again, good abstract write-up is extremely important, and 0 grammatical mistake in. So you know, the editor and the reviewer, first of all, they will read your abstract, and if they find this abstract is not well written, if it's a good journal, they will reject immediately, and it happens. I have rejected. Remember, the paper, even some journal, the editor, they mention in their website, no matter whatever the quality of your paper, if the English language is poor, we will reject the paper outright. They will not look into the technicalities because the language is so horrible sometimes. I'm sorry to say the word, using the word horrible, but it happens that I have experienced this. The English is so bad that how can I recommend for publication of this? So make sure that your paper English, no compromise with the good quality English. After abstract, we also expect quite bit difficult comparatively to other sections of the paper, that is good discussion. Discussion is really difficult compared to, even literature review is easy because you just read and then you write the literature review. But discussion is, you have to go back your findings, you have to match the tally with the literature, who got what. So good discussion section is very, very vital. If the discussion, one of the good indicator of a good paper is this, that good discussion, good literature review and good discussion. Results articulation is very easy. You just run, you get output, then you describe. So there's not much credit in presentation of the research results. It's very easy, but we can look into the discussion part, how good, how structured the discussion part is. We also expect managerial implications almost at the end of your paper. Managerial implications should be there. And again, here in thesis, the difference between thesis and paper, in the thesis is mandatory to state your theoretical contribution and practical contribution. But in paper, we don't find this kind of terminologies at all. Rather, we find the terminology which is called managerial implications. So we have to provide managerial implications, and along with conclusions, we also expect that there should be limitations of the work and future work, some avenues for future work. Now, after write-up the paper, then we have to find out a suitable journal. This is a very, very important issue. That if I send to a journal which is not suitable, then you will be disappointed because you will be getting the rejection letter very soon. So choice of a suitable journal is extremely important. In fact, when you start writing a paper, you already identify the journal where you are going to communicate, and you develop the write-up of the paper accordingly. That is the advice from the experts. I repeat this. When you start writing a paper, you identify the journal where you are going to communicate, and you develop the paper, prepare the paper, you write the paper accordingly. So that will be good matching. And how to select a suitable journal is not that difficult. We need to look into the journal website. First of all, we need to look into the scope. And secondly, what kind of papers the journal has already published. We just look into, browse through the table of contents. From there, we can see what kind of papers they have published. So, and what is the status or the quality of my paper. So if they are matching, then we can perhaps communicate to that particular journal. But before I communicate, I use this term 3 times, read, read, and read. When I mentioned literature review, you have to read and read and read. Now again, I'm using the same words, read and read and read. When you finish your write-up, your paper is ready to be communicated, but wait, read, read, and read. Make sure that everything is tip-top, though it may take a few days, additional days, but it is worth spending. Read, read, and read, and then you communicate. Write a good covering letter to the editor. Very nice letter. You describe the objective of your work. And if it is a PhD work, then you mention that this is my PhD work. So good covering letter is important. Then after in the review process, there may be 2 reviewers, 3 reviewers, sometimes 5 reviewers. I have seen there are 5 reviewers. So they will be giving a lot of comments, and you need to revise your paper accordingly. So most of the editors, they require responses point by point, so query by query. So you have to develop one document. You mention the query, the reviewer 1, then the query 1, and then what is your response. So and while you respond to the queries, be utmost polite. Do not get angry and do not say that, oh, we don't agree with this kind of comment. This will hurt the feeling of the reviewer, and that is dangerous. So be utmost polite in revising, in responding to the queries. And finally, for a good journals, you have to be very patient. Sometimes 3 or 4 rounds of review, and it was not this many before, because there was not internet facility. I'm talking about when I did my PhD, maybe just 1 or 2 rounds. But nowadays communication is very easy from the editor to the reviewer. So whenever you are sending the revised version, the editor immediately redirecting to the reviewer giving even comments and then again revise. So 3-4 rounds of review is getting a norm. Thank you very much, Dr. Mahfouz.
Thank you, Prof. It was very detailed in nature and very fruitful for the PhD students and for the academician like us who are very novice in nature and started embarking in the area of publication. Prof, we will be taking few questions. We have quite a number of questions out here. The first questions that I put on the screen, Prof. How about a novice student to accept him or her as a PhD student and train them? Could you please share? Dr. Siddiqui from Japan.
Actually, when we start, when I was a starter of PhD student, of course, I'm a novice. So if I don't accept any student, then how he is going to do his research? So when the student come, they are all novices, they are all naives, but we expect, as I said, the right mindset. It is when you are going to play a soccer match. It is not that, okay, let's go to the field and play. No, there must be some good commitment, motivation that I will win the match. Everybody, when he comes, of course, in the first instance, everybody is new, everybody is novice, does not know much about the research. So we welcome, we train them, but we expect, as I mentioned, that good motivation, good discipline, polite, and whatever instruction we will be giving, students will follow. So no problem at all. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you. Prof, our next question would be from this one, Angush Chang. Said, can I publish my PhD thesis in conference or journal before I complete my PhD thesis, oral examination? Is there any academic ethics issue involved in?
Yes. You, I do not advise to publish in conference proceedings at this particular juncture of time. I have very negative experience because academically the weightage for publication in a conference is not much compared to the publication in a journal. In a journal, publication weightage is much higher compared to publication in journal proceeding. Maybe the proceeding is very good, Academy of Management or Scopus listed, but still it is a proceeding. Once you publish in a proceeding, that's it. You cannot publish into that particular. Why you cannot? You are supposed to publish, correct? But why you cannot publish? Because the editor will use the Turnitin software, that is the plagiarism check software, and your paper which is published in proceedings is already in the internet, so it will be captured, and the editor will say, oh, look, this is a plagiarized work, but though it is your work, but he will not listen this because it's a reputed journal, and they tend to reject the paper. So the moment they will find that this is already published in some proceedings, they will reject. So when you attend in a conference, you use your PowerPoint slide only, and publication you can do before your oral examination publication. I don't think that there is a major concern about this, because this is your work. So it is okay, but I will advise you publish in a journal, not to a proceeding. Before oral examination, you can publish. My answer is yes, but try to avoid publishing in conference proceedings. Publish in journals. Because if you publish in conference proceeding, then at this particular time, because terminating software is there, the editor will not accept your paper because you have already published. So I hope I have addressed it, answered this question.
Right. Prof, there's another question from him as well.
Okay.
If I complete my thesis a few years ago and now I would like to publish, can I update the literature? And yeah, so Prof.
It is not can I update, it is mandatory that you must update your literature, because you have, and it happens quite for my case, some of my students have graduated 4 or 5 years ago, and it is reality that now we are processing for publication. So definitely we have to update the literature. So thank you very much.
Right. Prof, our next question is from Abdul Monim Mukul. Prof, may I have some important points that we need to emphasize in discussion part of article in qualitative research? I think if he
it is qualitative or quantitative. It does not. It is not the main issue. The issue is that your findings. See, this is the research. Research is something that high intellectual level. So you have your research problem, and then this is your findings, and what the other people have found in the same problem. Same problem area, same problem background. Whether it's a qualitative research, quantitative research, it's not the. I think it is not the major issue. The major issue is that whether you are comparing your findings with the other people's findings. So that is the major point. If your findings is concurring with other people's findings, fantastic. It's okay. That means it is a robust finding. But many times it does not happen like that. So it happens that your findings contradict with other people's findings. It's not bad. It can happen because there may be some local culture, local factors which might influence that your findings is wrong. So this is something interesting piece of write-up. So you need to do that. You need to relate your work with the other people's work. I hope I have answered.
Prof, our next question be,
okay,
what is your expectation for PhD students based on the independence of searching new knowledge to complete their thesis?
What is your expectation of PhD students based on their independence of searching new knowledge to complete their thesis? Meaning that the students, they have their independence ideas, searching new knowledge. Look, there is a research problem. There is a research problem, and there is a research literature. Whether you are doing independently or you have your innovative idea, but you have to be careful. Innovativeness is good, but there may be some kind of horizon that you have to work with. That given this particular research area, then you have to find out the particular research literature. And also, as I said, there is a right research methodology. So you need to comply with these requirements. For example, when you go to play a soccer, then you need to follow certain basic rules of soccer playing. If you don't follow those rules, then you have violated the rules. So innovativeness, independence, other kinds of idea is good, which you can have maybe a bit more at the latter stage, but at the PhD level stage, your objective is just to complete the PhD with flying color. So need to follow the prescribed university guidelines, the PG rules, and also don't ignore the supervisor guidelines. Even though you may not like it, may not agree with it, but if you really don't agree with it, but then you discuss with your supervisor that prof or doctor, I have this idea. So usually supervisors are flexible. So if the supervisor allows you, of course you can do. But if supervisor says no, then I think it is better not to do that.
Right. Prof, we are running out of time. We'll be taking our last question. which is again coming from Dr. Abdul Kalam Siddiqui. Say, so the purpose of PhD is only publication. How about application of your research? Could you please share some idea?
Okay, good question. Please don't misunderstand me that publication, PhD means only publication. Now you think that you have done a very good piece of work, correct? You have done a very good piece of work. So ultimately what happens? Your thesis will be decorating the bookshelf of the library or your own bookshelf. Nobody will know except your examiner, except your supervisor, maybe some of your friends. That's not the purpose of your doing PhD. PhD purpose, even maybe you have got a scholarship from the government. So people should be getting benefits out of your research. So how the people will know unless you go for publication? Why we go for publication? Why? It is just to get academic merit? No. Academic merit is one thing, but really the people know that oh, this is the work. All the research papers, even the scientists, name any scientist, any big scientist, they have published and they have done research, but they have published. If you don't publish, then how the people will know? This is one thing. Another thing, that when the publication is out, the output is out, and people will judge, oh, this is something can be applied. So then people will be applying. That you can publish in journal, you can publish in newspaper, you can publish in so many areas. So the more the spread of your ideas, then people will know more. So unless we go for publication, then it is very hard that people will know this. So that's why I said that publication is very, very important, but it is not for just academic merit, but just to know the world that, oh, really, this is the problem and this is the solution. Because in many times our social sciences goes around the problem. That's why we call problem statement. So in your entire thesis, 3-4 years, you have done a very good job, very hardworking, and this is your solution. So don't you think that people should know that this is the solution? So that's why we need to go for publications.
Thank you very much, Rob. It was really enlightening, and I hope our audience, the viewers today, enjoyed your discussion and also got benefited from the very detailed in nature discussion, Prof. With that, I would like to thank you once again for joining us, and definitely that was pretty much the whole idea that we wanted to convey to the audience today. Dear viewers, ladies and gentlemen, with that note, we would like to thank you for watching, and we would like to invite you again for next week on Friday night to see you again in our next episode. With that, the last word, I would like to thank Professor Rafiqul Islam for joining us. Thank you very much, Prof. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody. Thank you very much.